I think in Nigeria already. Welcome to this special session on Microsoft Fabric. So I'm going to do a bit of introduction. Then, since we are a smaller group, this might be more interactive than the one I completed. I just finished the same session, but for another set of group, I did it for the Excel series. So let's see, maybe we might do something more interesting than that. I see another familiar face. Thanks, Belu. I've not checked your message on on LinkedIn because obviously I'm still here. I'm here to do anything else since the webinar series. So this session is brought to you from, by your BizEdge and MHS. Your BizEdge is a Microsoft Excel, Power BI, financial modeling, SQL, purely data analysis, in different domains, finance, supply chain, marketing, and all the business and teams that use data analytics. We provide them training and consulting services. Okay. So if you need training consulting services, please reach out to us. MHS Analytics is the same company, but in Canada. So essentially same services, but for a different audience base or people who want to pay in dollars, or maybe it's just easier for them to connect our Canadian entity with their company. So that's what this is for. We already have service for 3 or 4 companies already in Canada this year. So we are already making progress with getting to Canadian clients. Okay, so my profile, already seeing me in the video anyway. So I'm the founder of MHS Analytics and your BizEdge. I'm a Microsoft MVP since 2014. I had a 1-year gap, so otherwise I would have been a 10 times MVP. But I'll share my LinkedIn so that you can connect with me. If you have not, let me do that. And we are going straight into this session. Let's put that in the chat. So this session is, yeah, I already knew anyway. So I was looking at Hanon's comment. So US Canada clock sets back, 1 hour. So, I get some people might have missed that timing. I never even thought of it that way. Okay, thanks. So I've shared my LinkedIn connection. You can connect with me. I see a lot more people have joined now, so I'm going to just quickly dive into the session proper. So what is Microsoft Fabric? I won't do as much elaborate introduction as I did for the Excel platform because I expect that maybe those of us here in the Power BI platform, you already have maybe more base knowledge than you probably even have experienced this Fabric, compared to maybe the Excel audience. So Microsoft Fabric is, if you ask me, the fusion of 2 previously existing platforms within Microsoft Azure offerings or cloud offerings. There's the Power BI that you all know because you are here. If you don't know Power BI, I don't think you will be in this webinar. Okay, so there's the Power BI that we know. I'll be monitoring the chat box if you have any question. And then there's this other tool that maybe we are not familiar with. It used to be housed within Azure. It's Azure Synapse Analytics. So Azure Synapse Analytics is a suite of products that was geared towards analytics services within the Azure platform. And there's always been the Power BI as a separate platform. So what Microsoft is doing right now is integrating and creating one platform that will house all those tools. So just think of the Azure Synapse Analytics now separated out of Azure. Power BI, that's the interesting part. So they didn't separate Power BI out of Power BI. So they just brought that forward and brought it into the Power BI existing platform. I decided to rename the entire platform as Microsoft Fabric. That's my own interpretation of what is happening. They might have a different explanation. This is not the official explanation. But to me, they took Azure Synapse Analytics and brought it into Power BI. So since you already know Power BI, let me just, since I have Google here, let me even show you, what really was Azure Synapse Analytics. So let's just come here and type Azure Synapse Analytics. Azure Synapse. Okay. Sometimes maybe for a session like this, I should go to image, So maybe that is going to make things easier for you to see. I think there is a beef between Microsoft and Google. So sometimes the result I get, let me show you what I mean. If I type this in Edge, you'll be amazed by how very different the result I get is. Like, I get a lot of Microsoft. But anyway, let me go to the image. I believe I'll get a more representative image here. Okay, I take that back. I think I'm getting the same kind of stuff. Let's see if this is going to give you. Okay, this is better. I didn't want something very complex. So this is Azure Synapse Analytics. You see Azure Data Factory. So this is Azure Data Factory, Azure Data Factory mapping flow. So Azure Data Factory. Then we have data SQL data warehouse. So both the dedicated SQL pool, on-demand SQL pool, but again, SQL data warehouse. Then we have Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So this is like something they are all sitting on. Then we have monitoring. So this is a product that Microsoft has been trying to sell as an analytics suite of products to clients, on the Azure platform. And so if you ask me, I think what they've just done is they decided to bring that Azure Synapse Analytics and bring it into Power BI and call everything Microsoft Fabric. So this allows you to now have one platform, the Power BI that we all know now. It's now the Microsoft Fabric. So that's that platform that now houses your Power BI now, a data engineering tool. So the data engineering tool set, data ingestion tool set, data warehousing tool set, real-time analytics tool set, data science tool set, and the BI is the Power BI anyway. So Microsoft Fabric is one platform that houses all of these data I don't want to use the word processing, but I think that's the final word I will use. All these data processing engines. Let me use it. Let me say it that way. So the advantage is twofold. One is for we the practitioners, whether you're a data engineer, you're a conventional Power BI person, you're a data scientist, those are the three major personas anyway, or you are just a regular data. I wanted to say maybe you're a database architect or database admin, but nowadays data engineers are expected to be that role. So if you're a data engineer, Power BI person, or a data scientist, rather than you having to work across multiple platforms, you go on Azure for some things, and then for some other things you go on a different platform. So what Microsoft is making possible is that all of us, all three categories of people or of experts that work already in companies in the data insight, data value extraction aspect of the business, we all can work from the same platform. So there's going to be visibility. I'm not like, for example, where I work, I have access to Power BI. I don't have access to the Microsoft Azure. So what happens is all what the data engineers are doing, what the data scientists are doing, that are sitting in the Azure portal, I'm completely blind to them. And then how I'm supposed to use some of their own output. For now, none of them is using my own output. So I'm the one needing to use their own output. And it's until I see something break that I'm going to just tell them this thing is not there or something. I'm not able to even guide them. It's until they've done all what they want and then they give me they give me the connection points. Until then, I'm able to see. But now, if we're using Fabric, even as they are building, I'm able to see it. I'm able to influence how they build things. I'm not just going to be passively consuming what they're doing. I'm able to influence it. And also for the data ingestion part, there are some aspects where I'm even the person best placed to do it, So I'm just saying this creates a proper collaborative, environment for all of the data professionals. So that's on the one hand. Then on the second hand, on the other hand, is that for companies, it gets rid of the integration headache, where things are breaking just because someone went to change settings on one platform and is now affecting other people that are supposed to connect and use the output. That has happened countless times where you will now be like, oh, who changed the settings, like where I consult. Usually every budgeting cycle, they try to audit usage and all, and they feel like, oh, this thing, they are not getting the usage they thought of. Maybe they should turn it off, Whereas, you know, so them, they are not getting usage, but the one account that is using it, maybe is creating reports that hundreds of people are using. But because they are not able to see that visibility, they only think only one person is using it. Whereas that one person is a Power BI user that is a builder that is using it to build reports that is servicing hundreds of people, right? So that visibility, that integration, things breaking, that management in different places, those are the things that this is meant to solve. So you now have one platform for collaboration, for data governance, for management, to set up rules that apply to everyone, and to really foster that genuine collaboration. I can work alongside the data engineers. I can do some aspect that I am more knowledgeable on. They can do some other aspect of even the ingestion that maybe they need to use their own tools that I'm maybe not an expert on. So does that make sense? So Microsoft Fabric technically, or no, practically, is Azure Synapse added into Power BI. Then practically and technically, it's supposed to be a collaborative tool for all the data professionals in the company to work out of. So instead of them, some other people working out of an Azure environment tenant, and some of us working out of a Power BI tenant, all of us are now within the Microsoft Fabric tenant. Okay. So clear? Any question before I move to the next one? Okay, so now let's go a bit further down. So let's start from the tools themselves. So I'm going to start from this upper part. So the tools themselves, I'm going to start from the left. So for data integration, right? We have two major tools at our disposal. And when I do the demo, you're going to see the two tools. So for data integration, we have the data pipeline, which is exactly the Azure Data Factory, if you ask me. Then we also have a second product, data flow. Data flow has always been in Power BI, but I think it just didn't work the way they wanted it. They've tweaked it a bit, but still it is mostly what it's always been in Power BI anyway. When I say Power BI service, but more interestingly, data flow is Power Query. Sometimes we used to call it Power Query Online. So imagine that you've been doing Power Query in Excel, in Power BI. That means you already know how to do data integration, because you already know how to do data flow. And that is one of the main components of this data integration. So this data factory is two products, data flows and data pipeline. So if you know how to use Power Automate or Azure Data Factory, then it's the same type of stuff for the pipeline, except that it's more for data. So in case if you use Power Automate, you might have been using Power Automate to do things that are not related to data movement. So it is much more aligned to the Azure Data Factory. Okay, so those are the two things anyway, Azure Data Factory and Power Query Online. If you allow me to use that practical way of explaining what makes up the data factory, the data integration component of Microsoft Fabric. All right, so let's go to the data engineering part. For the data engineering part, right, it is heavily PySpark, like Spark based. Let me not say PySpark, but I keep telling people that if they are serious about getting a commercial career, you're going to be working for companies and they're going to be paying you. You are not solo. You are not like a researcher locked up somewhere who is not going to be collaborating. Just zero your mind that it will be PySpark. Just know you'll be using practically Python because that's what companies expect, and they don't want to have someone working using Scala, another person using R, and then another set of team members using Python. It's going to be a nightmare to collaborate, to even hand over work to another people when you move from that role. So practically you're expected to know PySpark, notebooks, notebook, and I wanted to say you should need to know Lakehouse, but Lakehouse is just that one lake, so not too much. It's just they just practically say you will be using notebook and PySpark. Okay, so that would be the data engineering component, the Synapse data engineering. Then the data warehousing, like I told us, is Synapse stuff, then Power BI, then something else that is new. Okay, so the data warehouse is SQL based databases, So the same way I have a database, I have tables, I have views, those kind of artifacts, right? So when you create them, then that is the data warehousing, and the SQL is the main thing you are supposed to know how to use. So you'll be doing a lot of SQL based actions. Then the data science is also, we are back to this Python domain. So yes, you can use Python, you can use R, but I think Python is also what the industries, Microsoft is even, prioritizing too. So when you're going to work and you say you know how to use Microsoft Fabric, or you're going to be working for a Microsoft shop company where all their stuffs are hosted on Microsoft, they are also going to be expecting you to be good with Python, because that will probably be the primary, analytics, ML language ML stuff they are building, they'll be building with Python. So for this Synapse data science, you'll be using Azure machine learning, notebooks, obviously. Is there any other thing you'll be using? Well, primarily those two things. Okay. When we go to the demo part, I will show you all of it and you will see all what is underneath each category. Then for the Synapse real-time analytics, so these are for streaming data. Streaming data, we mean data that are coming to you almost in real time, and the emphasis is on real-time analytics. What's an example? The other session, I gave an example of a friend who 5-6 years ago, or was it 4-5 years ago, was doing solutions for farms, for industrial farms. And so they place sensors across the farm to measure weather, measure things, water, nutrients, air quality, all the general temperature and everything that they need to keep track of to ensure that they make the farm to intervene, maybe have systems in place to trigger irrigation when the water level is getting low, and just to have monitoring to optimize the farm yield. So those thousands of sensors, on those hundreds of acres of farm, they are generating thousands of data or even millions of data every 5 minutes, So that data now, you want to analyze it in real time, you want to see it in real time. Nobody's looking at the dashboard and is trying to see what happened yesterday. They want to see what's happening right now. Maybe one person once a week might try to see pattern over the last 1 week, but they want to see what's happening right now so that they can make interventions if there needs be. If they need to do something right now, they do it. That's the whole essence. It's not to see what has happened, last year, 2 months ago. So that real-time focus, and same thing too with telemetry. If you're into logistics and you have trucks and you have cars on the road and vehicles on the road that have sensors, GPS and all, you want to be seeing where each one is right now. You're not going to be like, where were you yesterday? Where is everybody at so time yesterday? You want to see where is everybody right now and be able to know, if something is looking at me and you need to intervene. Is there one particular truck that has just been in one spot for the last 10-15 minutes? If this was Nigeria, you start worrying because maybe that driver is selling your product as parked by the road and is selling the thing he's supposed to carry to Abuja or Kaduna. So For those kind of data, right, the focus is much more on real-time analytics, and they are huge. So you can't kind of use the same approach we've been using with sales data and those other data where nobody's looking at what's happening right now. They are looking at, okay, at the end of the day, what did we sell? At the end of the week, what's our performance? Nobody's looking at per second, real time, how many sales happen this very, very minute. So that's the difference. So it has its own different architecture. It's mostly using CustoDB and streaming analytics and CustoDB. So the business intelligence part is Power BI, which we all know. So I don't have to waste too much time trying to talk about that. Then there's this other tool, Data Activator. It's currently called Reflex. By the time I log in, you will see a product called Reflex. So they have renamed it to Data Activator. Uh, if I remember correctly, in the other session, when we read through what it does, it's supposed to allow ability to trigger actions. It says insight to action. So to me, I think it's much more like what they were trying to do with you know with dashboards in Power BI, where if you have like a card, have some specific visuals, you can set up an alert system. You can hook it up with, before it used to be data flow. No, was it data flow? You can hook it up with, yeah, I think it was data flow actually. That was the name it was called before they started calling, change it to data to Power Automate. But you can hook it up with something that will take an action that will say, oh, if this value gets up to this value, up to this, if this metric gets up to this value, maybe you should send an RFQ to all the suppliers in our system. All those kind of actions. I think that's what they are trying to rebundle that thing as and expand it further within this Microsoft Fabric suite. So this is the Microsoft Fabric. So these are the products you'll be interacting with on the surface. But underneath is one lake. So what is one lake? One lake is the same way you think of OneDrive and you think of Microsoft Office. You know how if you open PowerPoint, nowadays they are even forceful about it. Once you open PowerPoint, it wants you to save into OneDrive. You click save and it is OneDrive that is opening for you right now. You're the one that has to like switch it out of OneDrive into your folder, your own local folder. And you go to Excel too, you do the same thing too. You go to PowerPoint, you go to Word. Everybody wants to save into OneDrive for you. And the advantage is anything you save in OneDrive, it's available across. If I save it into a particular folder, all of the other people in my company that have access to that folder, they will see them, right? We can collaborate. If my laptop is stolen, all the files there are perfectly still available. But now, much more importantly, people can collaborate. We can begin to work on the same project, on the same documents, and so it's the same concept that this is. So all the data that everybody is interacting with in Microsoft Fabric is within one lake. So as the data scientist guy is creating his machine learning algorithms and models, whatever intermediate data, whatever transformations, whatever stuffs are coming out of it, data wise, I'm going to be able to see it as a Power BI person. So if at some stages I need to use it, then yes. Then also what I'm doing in Power BI, he's able to also see it. So if business is beginning to ask us for forecast, so they are already happy with the reporting, monthly reports, weekly reports. They are happy with the analysis that show performance against target. But now they want to see insights that will guide them into forecast. They want to see predictions. So that is something that the data scientist guy has better tools for. So instead of me trying to force Power BI to do what it is not well suited for, the data science guy will just take the output of my own report that already exists. I don't even need to do anything special, because while all our data is sitting on one lake, it's going to see the Power BI model. It's going to see all the output of my own Power BI report, and it's instantly going to be able to use it as input for whatsoever predictive model that he's building, and he can go ahead and be doing that. And if the business is telling me to update things and I make updates in the Power BI, it's those updates will flow through to him. So it doesn't have to be, it won't be a case of where it's done. We'll now find out that the data is working on is no longer the same because maybe I've made updates that he was not aware of after he has started working. So all of us, we are working on the same thing I talked about OneDrive, where whatever change I do, as long as you have access to the folder, you will see it. There's not going to be a problem of, oh, Michael, don't change this thing until Sunday, until Monday. Let me do my own, then send back to you. Then you can add your own changes. We can all add our changes on, as at whatever time as we want. So that's the advantage of this one lake. Similarly, too, let me tell you what's to happen. This is the very revolutionary part. If you have not been hearing me listen very well, I want you to pay attention to this thing I want to say, because it's a very big deal. So there's not going to be data redundancy. Let me repeat it. There's not going to be data redundancy. There's not going to be multiple copies of the same data again. Now, let me say it in a different way. There's not going to be the choice of whether to import or to do direct query anymore. Remember how we used to explain in Power BI that, oh, if you want the report to be fast, if you want it to show, up like refresh, like as close to read time as possible, you will do direct query. So that's the fastest way to pull in data, like make sure that whatever reports people are consuming, it is exactly what is there on the data itself. And then we'll say that if we want the report to be very robust, to do as much functions that Power BI allows us to do, and to be able to not have effect on performance, then we're going to use the import mode for the data set, right? Those conversations are old school. You're not going to be having that kind of conversations anymore. You're all going to, what will happen is in your Power BI, you are connecting to the data in a direct lake mode. Let me see if I can get the documentation to just flash you the documentation. It is like game change. Direct lake Power BI, direct lake mode. Let's see if this is the documentation for you. Okay, I like, hey, see, direct lake is the groundbreaking. This is not me saying it. It's a groundbreaking new dataset capability for analyzing very large data volumes in Power BI. So forget, this might look very technical, but again, the world is, they say make things as simple as they must be, but not much more. Because if you make things too simple, then people will not even, you start to leave out important information. So, but more importantly, you see what I was saying, that Synapse and Power BI is what eventually makes up Microsoft Fabric. So this is Microsoft Fabric. All of these are the things, because Power BI is more like now the front end tool. If you ask me, is the place where all the reports will go. I think it's just the data science guys that they might, I don't know, but they might need something different to serve their model too. It might not just be Power BI, but every other person, but the report that sits on the analytics, we are expected to use Power BI. So you see, this direct link is how you're supposed to access the data. And so what that means is no more need of doing direct query or import. You're just doing direct link to the one link. And so you are getting the advantage. You see, direct query is slow, but real time. Import is, that means the way I said it out at that time, I confused us. When I was saying fast was for me in terms of the refresh, like the data is as close to real time. So import mode is, because you import the data, you don't have to start pulling it every time people are interacting with your report. So it's kind of like for the users is when they're interacting and all of it. And even for you, you're able to do more kind of, there are some formulas I can't do when I'm on direct query. So this can be fast, but you're duplicating the data. Why? Because you are copying it and keeping a cache that is disconnected from the real data until you now trigger a refresh. So that triggering the refresh every time between the last refresh and the next refresh, people are blind. They don't know, you know, if what they are looking at is what really is happening right now or what happened as at the last time there was a refresh. And if the refresh fails, that's the problem. So sometimes we will not know that the refresh has been failing for the last couple of days and the thing is even turned off. And then the report people are consuming, unfortunately, is now like 1 week old, but not everybody knows to go and check that when was this thing last refreshed. You just believe that whatever report you are giving them, and since they've told you to be refreshing it every day, then obviously you've set it, and they don't know that sometimes those things break. So in summary, this is the new way, and it's grand. Thank God you can see the word. It's groundbreaking. I like that word. So you might want to read more about it. Let me just share this documentation. Then I'll go back to my slide. Groundbreaking. Okay, so let's go back to my slide. So that one lake is a big deal. That's the summary of it. Any questions before I move on to the next component of my presentation? I also will try to do some demo, but any questions? Okay. If you have questions, please put in the chat. So, okay, so now let's go further down. So I've talked about the fact that, you know, these are the tools at the surface that you're interacting with. You will see that this one is no longer the activator. So the activator is still in preview, but I think the activator is more of a thing that we trigger, like you're setting a lot. So that's why it's no longer the focus on this other slide. All right, so now let's look underneath, right? For the warehouse SQL. So now you as somebody who needs to have hands-on skill, what are the things that are really, really underneath that you'll be interacting with and probably need to have some technical knowledge on? So for the data warehouse SQL, you must have a good knowledge of SQL. Now for the data engineering, SQL plus Spark, but Spark, and if you ask me, I would say PySpark, Python implementation of Spark. Just be hands-on on it or start to learn it. For the data factory, Power Query, Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is set up as a no-code kind of platform. So that's why it's not like there is a language you should learn, but it can become technical sometimes. I've had to do some things on a Azure Data Factory that I was following the no-code approach, the drag and drop. It worked. I wanted to do it a second time. The thing did not work. I couldn't debug what was wrong because I was using the low code, no code. I was using the visual way of setting it up. But if I had used the coding way, if I coded it myself, it will always work. I wouldn't be stuck somewhere. But anyway, Hanon has to go. Yeah, the recording will be made available. Thanks for joining. So I'll say that don't just think that the data factory is like a click, like something you don't have to have technical knowledge on. I'll say try to understand beyond the drag and drop part of it, because sometimes things can fail and you will need to do expressions yourself. You will need to just get your hands dirty. And the Power Query too, likewise too. Power Query you can click and click and click here and there. But even the interface, for you to even know what exists, you have to be familiar, you have to be a bit technical. And at some stages you might need to go and do some M code, So I'll say, yeah, don't underestimate the technical requirements here. But the good thing is that, yeah, you can still say you are good at it, if only what you know how to do is click and drag and drop. You can still get the work done while you improve on the ability to do the coding part of it and writing expressions. So for the data science part, again, if you ask me, I will say notebook. Obviously, you have to be, even this data engineering too, you need to know how to write notebooks. But again, it's Python anyway. You just need to be familiar with the notebook experience. So notebooks, Azure machine learning, Azure ML. I'll say Python again, so that you don't go and deceive yourself into thinking because you know how to do R, you will not bother to learn Python, and then you will want to get jobs and they must accept you. You will get some jobs, but most jobs we write it there that they want Python. So that's just the thing. So for the Synapse Analytics, I already told us the Synapse real-time analytics. The real-time analytics is Costco DB. You can see Costco DB. Sometimes I call it Costco. Costco DB. Costco DB. And it uses a variant of SQL. So if you know SQL, it's kind of like you already know it. So it's called Costco Query Language, KQL. Power BI, you all know Power BI now. So that's why it's called Analyst Service, because even Power BI is looking like a suite of product. There's a Power BI service, a Power BI desktop, deployment pipeline. Now there's Git. Power BI is becoming a beast. It's very difficult now to even keep track of all that is happening. And I don't know if you've seen the newest updates to the Power BI desktop now. You can do calculation groups. It's amazing, it's just really amazing. And on the web, you can create formulas, create almost like now, I think Power BI will become something that you can work with purely from the web, where you might not need to install Power BI desktop. And that is going to be good news for people who use Mac. Because if you ask me, I think all the aspects are already there now. If I have time, I can show you. But so let's now say these are the tools that eventually you need to get your hands dirty on. You need to have hands-on experience on. Then at the bottom, I already told us that the base is one lake. But what is this one lake actually? What is the technical stuff underneath it? We've come to that part. One lake is essentially package files. It's essentially flat files. Are you getting me? So what we have is flat files that are now done in some syntactic way. We call it semantic model, where they now create some kind of layers on top to make it to look like what they want it to look like. Underneath, everything is flat files. Then for the data warehouse, so it has this delta lake layer on top of it. So you now have like a delta package file that has the ability for it to act like a proper DB and be able to be ACID compliant. I showed people in the other session. Let me see if I still have the page open. I can also show us. So ACID transactions. So that is like the litmus test for, is it representing a DB as such, So so this is, the delta package format to achieve SQL capabilities. So you are running SQL query and everything is working as expected, but underneath is flat files. Flat files, what we call flat files, right? Similarly to with the lakehouse too. So the lakehouse also too is delta package files to not. So let me tell you what they say. If you don't use a data package file, what you have is a lake swamp. I think that's what they call it, data swamp. Instead of a data, so we have data lake. So data lake is just ordinary package or some big data format. So Microsoft used to use HDLS. So it would be like HDLS if you are using the old ADLS approach, and every different providers. There used to be Hive, Apache Hive. Then there's the package. There's different data formats that. Then what now happened is package is becoming the dominant one, and then this data lake, this delta lake format is becoming like the industry standard. So what now happens is when you want something that looks like a SQL DB, then it's now like a data warehouse, but it's sitting on top of a flat file, delta package files, delta lake format file of files. Then also too, even your regular unstructured data and your other, data dumps, that you pull into here, because if you put them in a format underneath that is delta lake, you get some advantages. So it's also going to be called lake house. So it's called lake house instead of data lake. Data lake It's more like just ordinary packet or ordinary big data storage file system. But Lakehouse now has the capability to manage give data governance, updates, give it some stability, So it's called Lakehouse in that case. Then CustoDB, that is Microsoft own way of handling streaming analytics. It's like the equivalent of Google BigQuery. Okay. Then Power BI now, underneath Power BI we have data sets. So that also still exists. So all of these are visible within the one lake. So which means anybody can take anything. The data engineering guy can connect to my data sets and use it. The data science guy can connect to any of the data sets. Also, as a Power BI person, I can connect to Lakehouse, Warehouse. I can connect to everything is visible to everybody up here. So that's the main concept. Okay. So any questions before I move to another thing? Okay, no questions. It's a very silent crowd I have. You can put your questions in the chat. So, all right, I think now we can do the demo, right? So these are all the experiences. I'm going to now do the demo of all right, so let me open Microsoft Edge. Okay. So to go to Fabric, you go to app.fabric.com. Paste that. So when you go here, one of two things will happen. It will tell you to log in anyway. So depending on your current Power BI settings, one of two things will happen. You see, in my own case, it took me straight to Microsoft Fabric, an environment like this. This happened because I already have a Fabric tenant, like I've enabled Microsoft Fabric. Okay. Now, for you, if Microsoft Fabric is not yet enabled, what you will see will be something that will ask you to sign up, start trial. So it's kind of self-explanatory anyway. So if you are lucky that you see the start trial, then please pick it. If you are not lucky, which means you don't see start trial, and it's just showing you should buy or something, then what I will tell you to do is it's one of two things. Go to Power BI. Go to powerbi.com. So when you're in Power BI, right? This is for when you go to that app.fabric.microsoft and you are not able to see this or see start trial. So in that case, you will need to go to your tenants, your Power BI admin. And that is hoping that you are an admin. If you are not an admin, you go and look for him. You kidnap your admin and you tell him to log in and go to this admin portal. So you should go here for you or you go there for yourself and you enable this. So that is probably what is missing. So if you enable this, then you will be able to start trial. So anybody can start trial. So anybody who cannot start trial means this is disabled. So that's why it says one of two things is either this is disabled. All right. So in your case, if you are able to grab the admin, make him enable this, and if you are the admin, enable it yourself, and in that way you'll be able to start trial. Okay. Let me see. There's a question. Okay, so Bello is saying, let us assume someone has all this knowledge and experience about Microsoft Fabric, but there is no professional certificate to show for it. Can the employer employ such person? You are not probably going to like my answer, but that's the truth. So I've experienced three industries, like three workplace markets. The Nigerian workplace, the US workplace and the Canadian workplace. So in Nigerian workplace, let me tell you, there will be two kinds of companies. There is a company where they don't have a budget that is reasonable. Let me put that word because everybody has a budget, even if they don't have it written. They don't have a budget that is reasonable. So for them, they are not, for instance, now this Microsoft Fabric is not one person that should be, yes, this Microsoft Fabric is one suite of product, but one person is not supposed to be able to do all of this. If one person comes to you and say, I know all of this, you should be wary of that person. That person is over exaggerating his competence. One person cannot know all of this. So you will see there will be a Nigerian company that they cannot afford to hire all the maybe 3 or 4 different types of roles. Somebody for Power BI, somebody for data engineering, somebody for data science on the minimum. You need 3 different kinds of people. Somebody doing Power BI, somebody doing data engineering, somebody doing data engineering. That's if you're hiring one person per role type. So you need at least 3 people. Now, you might see a company in Nigeria. I'm saying Nigeria because I have to say what I've experienced. I will come to Canada and tell you what I've experienced in Canada. I'll come to US and see, So a company in Nigeria, you don't have that budget for 3 different people. So their concept is let us have one person. That one person will do everything. Maybe based on our immediate need. So management want to see reports that they will consume, and it's Power BI that will serve it. So obviously they will need somebody that is good in Power BI. So what we mean is they will optimize for a Power BI, someone that at least that his Power BI skill is good. Then when you now put all these many things in your CV, they will like it, they appreciate it because they know that means they can tell you since it's on your CV. They will say, yes, why don't you put it on your CV? You have the competence, and you will work and you will do everything and you have to just make it work and they will complain if you're not delivering. So there's that type of Nigerian company where they are not realistic with their budget, not budget only in terms of money, but budget in terms of number of persons. They are looking to hire one person to do what should be like many, many people's roles. Okay. Now that kind of company, I would say, is not the best for your experience. Like if you want to grow, it's not the best. Even if you already are an expert in all of it, it's also not the best because you will be stressed. You will be really, really stressed. You'll be doing so many things that should be done by multiple people. So there's those type of company. Now, those kind of company that you have a certification to prove that you know all of these is awesome. That's what will make them hire you over somebody else that maybe has many, many years of experience more than you. So yes, but like I told you, that's not the best. It's good if that's the only option you have. Everybody can start from somewhere, especially for a product that is new, where experiential knowledge is going to take time for people to begin to claim 3 years, 2 years experience. So it is a good learning environment, but it's not the ideal working environment. Okay. So that's one category of company. Then there's a second category of Nigerian company where they understand that they need to hire different personas, somebody for Power BI, somebody for data engineer, somebody for data science. So those ones, they are not going to be looking for somebody that has all the skills. They would rather look for somebody that is an expert in the one they want to hire. They will hire me for Power BI because, I have this impressive profile on Power BI. Then they will hire, I have a friend called Zane. They will hire Zane for data engineering because all his work experience and expertise and everything is much more, in that area. That's where he's been working for many, many years. Then they will hire maybe Ahmed for data science because Ahmed does data science. That's what he does. Build models. Been working with as well machine learning. So you see that based on that, it does not make sense if you even have a certificate that shows you have everything because they're not going to be looking for someone that has everything. Okay, so that's that. Now for US environment, and I think it's the same thing too for Canada. They don't even care about certificates. So even when they're hiring 2 people for Power BI, I can come with all the Power BI certificates in the world. They don't care. It's as if it is invisible on my profile. So that certification is even like it's a no value kind of for stuff. It's good if you're going to be a trainer. I think they like that if you are training people, you have a certification in what you want to train people on. But for the hands-on work, they don't really care about certification. So that's just the answer for that. Okay, so back to the demo. We are now in the Microsoft Fabric, right? Let's start one by one. Let's go to Power BI. So you see, this is Power BI, right? The interesting thing is always at the lower right left, you will see this way to go to the different other aspects of Microsoft Fabric. And I can also click on this to go back to the same place, right? If I click on Data Factory, you see, it still looks like within the Power BI environment. That's why I said it took those products and brought it into Power BI. So it's like Power BI's house. They now brought all these guys and say, Power BI. Now you have more people staying in your house, right? So I said there are two things in the data factory, right? Data flow and data pipeline. So let's navigate them one after the other. I said data flow is like Power Query. Let's see for ourselves. I'm waiting for. So see, is this not Power Query? This is Power Query. So I don't need to say too much, right? So let's go back. And then I said the second one is Azure Data Factory. Let me maybe I have to go back here again. So this data pipeline is, if you're familiar with Azure Data Factory, that's it. You're creating a data pipeline. I'm going to call it test. And you will see a similar experience to what you already know and have in Azure Data Factory. Taking a sweet time. Okay, so you see, I can say I want to maybe copy data from one place to the other. Like, I'm not going to do, I just want to let you see that if you're familiar with Azure Data Factory, you will see that is the same approach. I can say I want to create a data flow, and then I want to have this here, and it's going to, let me double click inside. I'm looking at time. I won't do much. I'll just hook it up to, the easiest thing is to copy data from one place to the other. So let's say I want to copy data from somewhere. So I want to copy data from, then it will ask me to pick where's the data source. So you see that it's very much like your Azure Data Factory, right? So I'll go back to here. So we've seen this. So let's go to the next one, the data activator. So remember I said this is Reflex. They've not even completely renamed. So it's still showing as Reflex, but the new name is going to be data activator. I don't know much about this, so I've not used it, but I sense very much it's what used to be alert. See, it even takes me to like a learn stuff. So I'm not going to waste our time on this because, like I mentioned, I haven't done. I tried it. I don't know well. I can't just remember what I did with it, so I don't want to mislead us. So I'll just leave it as something that I'm not knowledgeable on. So let's just assume that I don't know anything about it, but I've tried to use it before now. I've tried to do some trial demo on it privately. So the data engineering. So for the data engineering, remember I told us that you are going to be doing notebook, Spark. See? And obviously too, they expect you to be able to create data pipeline. So that's why I say there will be this data pipeline you're seeing is also the same thing in this place. You see? So if I go to this data flow, So this thing, this data ingestion, this data factory, it's supposed to be a place where the Power BI person can come and say, this is, I'm best suited to create this thing. I'm going to create data flow. The data engineer person can say, oh, I'm the best person suited to create these type of stuff we want to create. And I'm going to use data pipeline. Why? You see this data pipeline. If I go to data engineering, I see it's there, right? Now, let's go back. You see this data flow. If I go to Power BI and let me just go to any workspace. Let's just go to any workspace. So I'm in Power BI. See this Power BI, right? If I come here, I'm going to see that data flow. Can you see data flow? So this is something that is present natively in Power BI and also here. Similarly, the data pipeline is present natively here and also in the data engineering. So it means that as a Power BI person, there will be some data integration stuff that it's best for me to create using my knowledge of Power Query, because like I told us, that data flow is Power Query online, you know. So, and then in addition, as a data engineer person, you're expected to use Notebook, use Spark. Let's just click this. So if you want to create a Spark job, I don't know how to create a Spark job, so let's just go create a notebook. Okay. So okay, you can see you can be Python, Scala, Spark SQL, R, and I've told us if you are doing this so that you can be competitive in the market, please just make sure you know PySpark. Okay, so I'm going to go out of there. So I've seen this, we've seen this, we've seen this, we've seen this. So let's go take a look at this. So for the data science, like I told us, is Azure Machine Learning. Azure Machine Learning and Notebook. See? I go here. Mr. Olabode, thanks. So my head is swelling. Thanks a lot. Where do I say thanks? Where is the icon for thank you? Okay. So yeah, so this one's so if I'm here, I can begin to create ML. So for me, I used to use the ML designer, Azure ML designer. Let me see if the designer is, if we have a designer. So I think in this particular one, you have to do from the notebook. You can't do the Azure ML Studio. So which means you have to be very conversant with creating, the models directly from scratch. Okay. So I'm not that very good with that. I'm going to now go back to this Microsoft Fabric. At least we've seen what we can access from here. Let's go to the data warehouse. So for the data warehouse, there's just one main thing. Oh, interestingly too, you can see these two. So if you are someone who is like a data warehouse person, they expect you to know how to use these two products too. So that's interesting, So, but your primary tool will always be this. This will be your primary tool, the creating the data warehouse itself. And once it's loaded, you'll see that this is primarily SQL driven. Maybe I would even create some table using PL, using store procedure. So let's just see if we can do that. Okay. Okay. So in one of the sessions we had, my colleague did a presentation on SQL, and there is he copied some stored procedure, copied like a stored procedure to create a table on the fly. So let me just look for it. But we copy that and use it. It's not this. Okay, so that I'll be able to scroll faster. Maybe I'll just take it to another screen, open let me just do that. I'm going to click inside here that I want to do a new SQL query. And then in this new SQL query, I'm going to I think this is it. Okay, great. So I'm going to paste in these. So this thing, if I run it, it's not going to work because I'm not able to create primary key in this one. So I think with this, if I run this, it will create for me a table called client. Let us know that it is the one we have done. Client today now, 05 November 2023. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to run the query. New valid object name at, okay. I updated it here. I did not update it here. Yeah. So let's see if it will run the whole thing. Okay, so this worked. So if I refresh, if I come here and I refresh, I should be able to see under DBO, under tables. See, I've seen clients. This is what we just did. Okay, so because I think it created the table at first, so I'm going to just drop this table and we'll recreate it again. Okay, so I'm going to let's verify that that is done. Okay, so the table is gone. So I'm going to rerun this. I'm going to rerun this now. Okay, so rerun it. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to just refresh this. So see, so we should see the data inside of it. Okay, good. So you see, I can create, and as usual, you can bring in data. So you can decide that you want to use, Power Query to bring in the data. And the advantage of that is now I'm leveraging my knowledge of Power Query. I'm able to say, oh, go import from wherever, Excel file, CSV. I can, like this is like I'm back home. The comfort that we already are used to, just all there. So all the different things I can connect to bring in the data. That's it. And then okay. I will try to show you this other concept called shortcuts. Let me just at least complete what I'm doing. So now we've seen data warehouse, right? I need to close this thing. I need to close this, otherwise it won't. showing, yeah, I want to exit. So I'll go back here. So now we've seen this. Then this real-time analytics, like I told us, it's a Costco DB, Costo, not Costco, Costo DB stuff. So it's a special database for hooking up to streaming data, so it's API kind of delivered data sets. It's supposed to open up something. I don't know why it's not clicking, but anyway, let me show us the other thing I had in mind. So in the data engineering part, right? Okay, it was actually just not coming up. I've gone multi-law. So data pipeline. Okay, I think we even created one the other time. Did we? Okay, anyway, I'll just call this test pipeline. Any other questions? I can see a question already. Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at old data. Okay, great. All right, so what was it I wanted to do? I forgot what I wanted to do. Oh, I think I said I wanted to. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, I remember what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a shortcut. What would be the best place to create that? I think there's more than one way to get to the place to create a shortcut. So I'm trying to see the one that will be easiest for me to just show now. Okay, so I will use the let's just go back to the Lakehouse. So if I go back here to data engineering, Lakehouse. Let me see if I have created one before so that I don't keep creating too many stuffs. Let's just use one that is existing already. I think it's empty. I created this when I was doing demo, like testing things out myself. So let's see. Okay, good. Okay, so if I go here, you see you see shortcut. So shortcut is I can connect to data without bringing it in, like external data, Azure, and you can also connect to an Amazon data in Amazon. So this is another interesting concept that instead of you importing data from somewhere else, from Azure, the already existing data you have on ATLS and on Amazon, you can just create a shortcut to them. And so the data stays there, and whatever updates, whatever everything is happening to the data there is still happening without you having to duplicate the same process here, and you can be able to use the data. So this is the end of my presentation. Any other questions? I hope I did a good job. I hope now you're a bit more comfortable with navigating through Microsoft Fabric. And if you ask me, I will say, please try to access the trial, because the pricing is expensive. Let me see if I can show you what the pricing is. It is really expensive. I don't think anybody as an individual is going to be able to afford it for even testing purposes. So this 60 days trial, which the truth is it is more than 60 days, because I think they want to wait till the public launch before they start to reduce the number of days. So it will keep showing as 59 days. Mine has been showing as 59 days for weeks, for months, you know. So, but if you want to pay for it, the price is crazy high. Like, it's very expensive. It's the usual Synapse pricing, and I think maybe even more, you know. So this is our opportunity, you know. When I say opportunity as individuals, this is a great opportunity to spin off things. You see all these ways I'm clicking around, clicking things, and I don't care. I'm just turning things on. If it is not a trial version, you go and do that. If you work in a company and you are doing this thing I'm doing, 1 month or 1 week after, somebody will start checking, why did we pay this much money to Microsoft? And before you know it, they will trace it back to you. You know, they will take it out of your salary because they will feel it. It's the kind of amount that they will notice it. It's not small, you know. So thank you very much. Any comments, any questions before I wrap the session? Let me just go into my charts. Okay, so Damilare is asking, what level of maturity does an organization need to have to take advantage of this? Because of the way it is priced there, I tell you, small companies will not be able to take advantage of this. That price is significant, you know. It's just like the way most small companies are not using Microsoft Premium. I mean, Power BI Premium. It's because of the expenses now. It's thousands of dollars per month. You know, that's a lot of money. So it's only big companies that might justify the need to spend that. So based on that already, it's usually big companies, like companies that, if you ask me, that maybe already have thousands of employees and are already used to spending thousands of dollars per month on analytics, on like report making, you know, not just on salaries now. This is on like the actual tool that the analytics person will work on. So that's my own thinking. I need you to just be able to help me to do feedback. So I'm trying to share some links. So I might not have gotten to some other questions because I'm trying to quickly look for the feedback link so I can share it on time. I think I know what to do. I'll just go to another screen. Okay. So hospital feeling of the yes. Okay, great. So now I'm back. I can check the other comments. So so thank you. Bilo says thank you very much for the class. God bless. Thank you too. You joined the Excel one. You are also here. So also to thank you for the dedication. You know, like they say, your own time too is money. You know. So Olabode, this is my first time of seeing or hearing Microsoft Fabric. How can I learn adhere to tutorials? Thank you very much for this question. So I think I mentioned it in the other class, but let me mention it here. Microsoft has this amazing resource. You know, I always tell people that Microsoft does a very good job of creating free learning resources for their products. And they are very thorough. Like they have people that they have paid full time to be updating these things. And so they try to keep up with the updates. So what that means is for a new product like Microsoft Fabric, this can be probably the best place to find all of they might not do too much demo, but at least to understand how it works, be able to do a bit of navigating around, and then decide whether you want to go and do a much more deeper dive, training, or I don't know. Right now there's no book on it. So even we training providers, we are not creating training on Fabric because it's evolving. So right now I would say this is the best place for you to go to learn, and these things might take a lot of reading and trying. So there if by the time you click on this, it will start you on a journey. There's a second one. Let me just paste that second one. Let's see. There's a second one. There's a fabric, learn fabric. I think it's just getting started. Okay. There's another one. Okay, it's on my slide. Let me go and get it on my slide. There's another one. This one. So I'm just going to copy this. Copy it. Okay. So I'm giving you this second one too. Yes. So those are the two major resources that I know as good for you to. Yeah. Okay, so Bello, yes, I will go and check LinkedIn, but I'm very tired. So once I finish this session, I will go and eat. Then I will rest a bit. Then I will now catch up with all the messages and maybe check LinkedIn. But once I see your message, I will reply. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I'm going to end this session now. Thanks for staying this long. I hope you learned, one or two things. I hope you got value for the time. And I want you to please explore fabric. You are not supposed to know everything. Like I said, the kind of company that will want to hire you to do everything, that kind of company is not the kind of company you want to be working for. They will suck the life out of you. So naturally, everybody at the end, once this thing take the shape Microsoft wants, every company will be expecting you to be familiar with the same way they will say they want somebody that knows Azure, but no company expects you to know everything that is in Azure. They just want you to be familiar with the platform, be able to work alongside other people in the platform. So that's what I think it will be in the future. So thank you very much and have a wonderful week ahead. Thanks, Hayo. Thanks, Famous. Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure to see big men in this call. I'm honored. Thank you. Have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.